Hi guys, welcome to the UEBC 2022 hosted by JPS here in Melbourne, Australia. I am joined by the great and powerful Jackson Peos, who has just wrapped up.
Don't lie.
No, there's no lying here, there's no lying. This is all truth here. Jackson, you've just wrapped up your presentation on getting a grip on cheat meals, refeeds, diet breaks, and really just kind of touching on one of the topics you mentioned in your presentation. Could you recap for us how the length and the context of a diet might affect if it's worth kind of opting for this intermittent dieting approach, or whether it's good to just go for a kind of linear, consistent calorie target?
Yeah, so I guess the major notable downside of a diet break is that it delays the attainment of the end goal, if the end goal is physique related, like a certain weight, certain look, certain body fat level. And it extends the duration that you need to spend in restriction. Even during a diet break, if you're doing it where you're feeding around your maintenance calorie intake, it's still going to require a reasonable element of restraint. Now, that is obviously a cost that needs to be weighed up person to person. And I'll give you a couple of examples. For example, if someone is just trying to lose as much weight as they can to fit in their suit for their wedding that's coming up in a couple of months, it's probably not a good spend of their time to be allocating 1 week diet breaks every 3, 4, 5 weeks, however long, where that is just time spent not getting closer to the end goal, and it's not improving the physique. It's basically just putting the car in neutral. Whereas if we compare that to, let's say, a contest prep bodybuilder who's just had 3 years of an off season and they're looking at the next 12 months ahead of them, then it might be very realistic that they can pre-program diet breaks within their prep without interfering with the attainment of the end goal. And it's also quite possible that for those really, really long preps where fatigue management becomes more of an issue and you're just fighting larger battles, the leaner you get and the longer you diet for, perhaps just easing off the pressure, backing off the pedal or the accelerator might just have some merit in that case.
Okay, awesome. And so would you expect there to be, in terms of the context, would you expect there to be much difference from a male to female perspective, or is it, has the research kind of given us a gauge whether it's similar? Is there not enough research, or?
So I actually analysed male and female data specifically in the ice cap trial, my diet break study. Now, these weren't Alberto Nunez level bodybuilders, right? But I did per sex analyses, and there was no differences between the males and the females, and I chose not to publish that just because the study was already so large and heavy, and it was just showing there was no differences. So there's nothing that suggests to me that the response to a diet break would be sex specific.
Mm-hmm. Sure. And obviously you mentioned your ice cap study. If we kind of touched on this towards the end of your presentation, but in terms of the research going forward, let's say you had no limitations, there was no kind of nothing restricting you, where would you like to see the research go next?
I would like to see research on an extremely lean cohort of trained people. For example, people preparing for a bodybuilding contest or perhaps a boxing fight, or things where the minimum amount of body fat is an advantage to the competitive outcome. And these people are hard to come by, and they certainly tend to not want to have their preparations or their fight camps interfered with, because they've got one focus, and their focus is certainly not to give you some good findings for your study. Mm-hmm. But in a perfect world, I would really like to take a group, let's say 6-8 weeks out of a contest. It doesn't need to be bodybuilding, but a contest where they're going to be shredded on competition day, and just see, do we see some unique things when prescribing diet breaks or refeeds that we don't see when someone's, let's say, going from 15% body fat down to 10?
Sure. I think I'd probably really enjoy seeing that as well, and maybe one day we'll get a group that is brave enough to do that.
Yeah, the JPS lab research funds.
Maybe, yeah. We'll have to see what we can do in the future. just to wrap it up here today, I noticed you've been turning some heads with your aesthetic today, and obviously you have your brand Koshiro, which is fantastic. For those who haven't checked it out, please do for your anime-based apparel needs.
I love this guy.
I just want to get your idea on where does your influence for the aesthetic come from?
So I have Japanese inspired is the basis of most of my interests outside fitness, to be fair. So my food, the things I watch on my entertainment, anime obviously, my tattoos, they are all of Japanese origin. And there was another one, of course, the fashion, like you go to Tokyo or Osaka and the fashion there is just like a different game. Like Jacob would stick out like a sore thumb walking through the streets.
Sure would. For those who don't know, Jacob Skepis, zero fashion.
So yeah, it's mostly Japanese inspired with like Y2K elements and I guess a blend of sportswear with like futuristic Asian elements.
Cool. I like to see you as a bit of a pioneer in terms of what you're doing.
I hope so.
Let's hope we can see more of the same from Jackson. I think that's probably about all we've got time for today. Jackson, once again, thank you for taking the time to kind of sit with me and for your presentation. Guys, if you missed Jackson's presentation, please keep an eye out on the JPS socials for the UEBC 2022 replay. And we are just looking forward to seeing you again next year.